Great Demon King. Chapter 41. Battling the Deepwater Venom Python. The still waters of the pool were shattered by chaos as the Deepwater Venom Python closed in on Lisa, its spiked emerald back sending ripples outward with every undulating movement. The monstrous serpent exuded a terrifying aura, its fanged mouth dripping venom as it cut the distance between itself and Lisa to less than 20 meters. Lisa's panicked thrashing only slowed her down, while the python gained ground with frightening speed. Fanny had just reached the edge of the pool when she turned back, her expression resolute despite the terror in her eyes. Like a creature of the sea, she plunged back into the water, swimming with all her strength toward Lisa. But her efforts couldn't match the speed of the python. Suddenly, a streak of movement caught her attention. Han Shuo surged through the water like a bolt of lightning, cutting through the surface as if he met no resistance. His necromantic training had pushed his physical limits far beyond those of an ordinary human, and now he moved with purpose and precision. In moments he reached Fanny and Lisa, grabbing Lisa's arm with one hand and wrapping the other around Fanny's waist. "Let's go," he barked, his tone sharp and commanding. Han Shuo's mind had no space for distraction. His focus was on escape. Even as his hands gripped the soft, smooth skin of Fanny and Lisa, the peril of the moment crushed any stray thoughts. With powerful strokes, his legs churned the water like the tail of a fish. Fanny, understanding the gravity of the situation, kicked furiously in sync with him, aiding their retreat. However, the burden of carrying two people slowed Han Shuo considerably. The Deepwater Venom Python slithered closer, its massive bulk displacing the water in waves. Lisa's terrified screams echoed across the pool as her limbs weakened, her panic rendering her almost useless. "We were going to die," she cried, tears streaming down her face. Even Fanny, usually composed, looked pale and stricken. Han Shuo's jaw tightened. A look of grim determination settled on his face. "I can't save them both like this." In a decisive move, he swung Lisa with all his strength. Her naked form flew through the air, landing safely on the pool's grassy bank. Without missing a beat, he shifted his grip to Fanny, planting his hand firmly on her lower back, just above her toned buttocks, and gave her an additional push. Her speed surged, and she cut through the water like an arrow, reaching the shore shortly after Lisa. "Go. Get to safety," Han Shuo shouted, his voice carrying above the chaos. Lisa scrambled onto dry land, still shaking. "Brian, save Brian," she cried, turning to Fanny. Fanny, panting and dripping water, glanced back. "We can't help him if we're still in danger. Stay here." As the two women reached safety, Han Shuo turned to face the python alone. The monstrous creature had closed the distance, and its dark green eyes gleamed with malice. Its tail lashed out in a wide arc, aiming to coil around him and end the fight in an instant. Instead of retreating, Han Shuo charged forward. He swam directly toward the python's head, dagger in hand, his movements calculated and precise. The python, caught off guard by his boldness, hesitated for a fraction of a second. It hissed angrily, its massive fanged mouth opening wide to spew a cloud of dark green venom mist. "Brian, the mist is poisonous. It will paralyze you," Fanny shouted from the shore. Han Shuo inhaled sharply and dove underwater, narrowly avoiding the toxic cloud. The serpent's tail lashed again, but Han Shuo twisted his body, evading it by mere inches. Beneath the surface, the world seemed eerily still, the serpent's movements distorted through the water's ripples. Han Shuo surfaced directly beneath the python's neck. With a shout, he thrust his dagger upward. The blade sank deep into the soft flesh of its throat, eliciting a piercing wail from the creature. Blood sprayed in dark crimson arcs, staining the water around them. The python thrashed wildly, sending waves crashing against the shore. Its tail swung in every direction, a blur of green scales and raw power. Han Shuo barely had time to yank his dagger free before diving again to avoid being struck. Gathering his energy, he pressed his palm against the python's wounded neck. The mystical glacial spellfire ignited with a faint, eerie glow, sinking into the serpent's flesh. The magical flames burned cold, causing the python's movements to grow increasingly erratic. It roared in agony, but before Han Shuo could celebrate, a stray gust of the venomous mist seeped into his skin through his pores. A numbing sensation spread through his body like wildfire. His limbs grew heavy, and his vision blurred. On the shore, Lisa screamed, "Master Fanny, Brian's been poisoned." Fanny immediately began chanting a spell, her voice steady despite her fear. 3 spectral bone spears materialized, hovering ominously in the air. With a flick of her wrist, she sent them flying. The spears struck their marks. 2 pierced the python's head, while the third shattered several of its venomous fangs. The serpent reared back in pain, thrashing violently. The magical yuan within Han Shuo's body surged, combating the toxin. He felt the paralysis ebbing, his strength returning. Summoning all his remaining energy, he swam toward the serpent's head and delivered 2 swift final blows to its eyes, blinding it completely. The python's wails echoed through the forest as it flailed helplessly. Blood poured from its numerous wounds, and its once powerful movements slowed. Finally, with a last feeble roar, it sank beneath the water, lifeless. Han Shuo floated to the surface, his body battered and bruised. His chest heaved, and water leaked from his lips. His clothes were in tatters, and a fiery red welt burned across his cheek where the python's tail had struck him. Lisa and Fanny wasted no time. Ignoring their own nakedness, they swam out and pulled Han Shuo to shore. His abdomen was distended, and his cheeks puffed out, water spilling from his mouth. "Why isn't he waking up?" Lisa cried, panic creeping back into her voice. Fanny leaned over him, her face determined. "He drank too much water. His throat must be blocked." She hesitated, then sighed. "I'll do it." Blushing furiously, Fanny bent down and pressed her lips to Han Shuo's, her soft tongue parting his teeth to deliver a breath of air. The sensation was as shocking to her as it was electrifying to Han Shuo, who had regained consciousness moments before. "Is this a reward for saving her?" Han Shuo thought, savoring every moment of the unexpected kiss. As Fanny pulled back to take another breath, her gaze wandered and froze. A peculiar sight greeted her between Han Shuo's legs, a small unmistakable tent rising under his soaked clothing. A high-pitched scream cut through the night. "Damn it, Brian, I'm going to kill you," Fanny shrieked, grabbing Han Shuo by the neck and shaking him furiously. Han Shuo, for all his bruises and exhaustion, couldn't help but laugh inwardly. "Worth it."